My name's Tim, you're watching Cybersport, and we've just concluded the last of the games here at Rift Rivals, except the finals, obviously. And with me, I have Hauntzer. How you doing, man?
Good.
Do you know what? We're kind of going to dive straight in.
Sure.
This is before the final game. So,
Right.
caveat, if anything happens and you see this after the final game, you'll probably know that some of the stuff we talk about won't make sense. But it's you and the unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really kind of expected that. But at the same time, how does it feel? I mean, you're going up against what has now proven to be your Achilles heel. Out of all the teams you could meet here, you're facing the one that somehow gives you trouble. Why?
I think it has to be their unique playstyle. Vizicachi is probably the best European top laner in this tournament, and Xerxes is kind of like a cheese jungler. Their duo lane's pretty stable, and Exile, he's really on and off. Also has a lot of cheese champions, so we're a lot better when it's meta to meta, and we know we can just overpower people because we're just better in every role. But when they play cheese champions or play weird team comps that we don't play against a lot, they played Vlad and Vlad Nar, and they had a really good dive comp, but we couldn't really adapt to that. And so things like that, the ability for them to pick out cheese picks that counter our comp is something that we have trouble with, and we have trouble drafting against. Our history before, I was on the team when they first lost to UOL, but we played at IM Oakland just this past year, and they got the better of us. I think that's mostly because of how much practice we had going in. We had very little practice because we just came off of Worlds, we had our break, and then we also had a new player coming in, and so we had a lot to learn back then, and I feel like those matches don't really decide, you can't take those matches into account when you are putting us head-to-head because we were just a really bad team back then. But now I feel like we have a really good chance because we're better in every regard, basically, except for adapting to their picks, and that's something that we're going to work on.
All right. Well, I mean, you obviously have a best of 5 coming in tomorrow. Looking at some of these picks, because Double Lift actually touched on some of that when we talked to him earlier about how you're kind of moving away from the style we see many teams use, where they have one person that they feed. Reckless is a good example here, where all the Fnatic just kind of pools everything into Reckless, and if Reckless can't carry, that's it, they're screwed,
Right.
Where Double Lift kind of mentioned that you've been practicing a lot with Bjergsen doing a bit of early work and then passing the ball down to Double Lift, maybe sending it to Svenskeren, maybe sending it to you, depending on what the situation calls for. How have you been practicing this particular thing? Because this isn't how TSM used to play. I mean, this has taken a while.
Right. So before last year, when we had the same roster, we played pretty much mainly to mid and bot, and that worked out for the most part, except when bot lane lost, and that gave us a huge disadvantage. So I stepped a lot in spring. I learned how to play with a lead and carry the game. And so now we can pretty much play to any lane, and it really depends on how we draft and what type of draft we go for. If we're drafting a counter pick top, then I'm going to be the one to carry. Then if we're drafting for teamfight comps and it's up to Bjergsen and Double Lift, it really just depends on the draft now and not on which player is the best, because we all know that we can carry games really easily, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just mainly based on how we decide to counter our opponents in draft.
Okay. Mr. Rallis was brought in at one point as a sub for the ADC, but I mean, I'm finding it hard to believe that at any point you were actually toying with the idea of not just fielding Double Lift all the time. Was Mr. Rallis' role more akin to what we see with Lulex on C9? Was it more of a coach thing where he's primarily there to help Double Lift, or how does the whole support thing work these days?
So Mr. Rallis coming in, we're going in with the idea that we wanted to get us up for Peter, because Peter plays pretty much a really aggressive style, and Rallis plays a lot smarter, and so we want to have some diversity to add to our playstyle. And it's not a Lulex situation or way back when Keith was became a sub for TSM to like motivate Turtle basically. It's something like that. We actually wanted to see if he was a good enough player to join TSM and become our sub. And so far, based on like the tryouts, I think he's a really solid player, and who knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah, true. Looking at the entire sub thing, because we don't really use it that much here in Europe. Obviously, we were amongst the first as well, outside of Korea, to look at the whole like coach thing or whatever, and that kind of spread everywhere. But we haven't picked up on the sub trend that's now really going nuts in America. It's like everybody's just gone wholesale on it. Just you get a sub, you get a sub, everybody gets a sub. Are you making, like you said, is it like a B team so you can like flex pick? Or is it also, like you said, maybe more of a wild turtle thing where are some of them there to maybe motivate, to maybe kind of coach, kind of train, kind of whatever, so the other person can sit and observe? What's the role overall of subs?
I think the main role of subs is to be able to discuss like things about that role with another top tier player. And so you look at C9, they have two good top players, Impact and Ray, and not only do they both have different styles, but they also both have different thoughts about the game and how to like build champions, what matchups are good, stuff like that. And that really just improves that team's role because you have like double the game knowledge basically, and you can both figure out what's good instead of just like trying to play against opponents. And what Mr. Raleigh does with Peter was like what he would do would be help him on matchups. Figure out what play styles fit each other, and like if we're gonna play like more of a control AD carry, then we play Raleigh or something, and then if we're gonna play like super hyper carries and we play Peter. So it changes up depending on play style of what the team wants, and I'm not sure why EU doesn't use subs, but it's definitely really common in A. Almost like a lot of the teams have it, but we haven't adopted it quite yet. But I think it's definitely something that just doesn't hurt at all and can only help you.
Okay. One last question just before we go, like super quick. Which EU player has impressed you the most coming in, and which one has disappointed you the most? You are allowed to make it like a bit fast. You don't have to go like super fast.
The EU player that's impressed me the most, I'd say Vizichachi is really impressive. He has really solid laning, good team fights. In my opinion, he was the best top player for Europe. Most disappointing player, it's kind of hard to say. There were a lot of disappointing players. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think probably Fnatic. Like, Ruckus does get a lot of resources, but he doesn't quite carry the game as he should when he gets like the most amount of gold on this team, and not being able to adapt to like meta picks is also like a huge fault that he has, and he forces his team to play around his playstyle, which in some metas can be really detrimental. And I feel like if he's going to put the team in a situation where he gets all the resources, he should at least like try to play meta picks or learn how to carry the hardest in that meta. And so most disappointing player would probably be him because even though he has like great stats, it doesn't really show in performance.
Okay, well, and for those of you, and thank you for that, by the way. And for those of you at home, if you have any thoughts on the matter, there's like a comment section down there. You can put words in it, and I think you should. For more on Rift Rivals, and I guess at this stage, by that I mean for the finals, stay tuned to cybersport.com. Cheers.